What's your favorite season? Winter? Fall? Oh, mine? Mine is awards. Hello, if you've been here before, welcome back. If not, hi. My name is David. I make videos talking about media that I want to talk about. This is my entry into the mid-year freakout tag 2025, which is a popular booktube tag that I saw Jessica's library card post a video about. This is her video. I'll put a link into the description of her video. Go check her out. This tag is popular within the booktube community and is basically taking stock of the last half year of reading. And there are prompts for me to answer questions as to what kinds of books you liked, what you didn't, etc., etc. And yeah, so this is going to be a recap of the last half year of my reading. I am recording this due to my schedule at the point before I am able to even record my June 2025 monthly reading review. So there's going to be some books here that I read in June that I have not been able to talk about, or at least I think this will come out before my June review. I'm not fully sure, but I'm talking about books that I haven't talked about yet that I will talk about in the later video. But yeah, keep an eye out for that one. So for these questions, I'm sort of going to do not like an Oscars sort of thing. Like there will not be nominees per se, but I will list like 2 to 3 books that I say would almost fit, but I'm still going to say which one is the best one. That way I can still talk about more books, but still highlight a specific book, etc. So the first question is, what is the best book you've read so far in this year? Honorable mentions, I have to mention Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Really great sequel to, or I guess prequel to The Hunger Games. I've annotated it. It's so good. Another honorable mention, Heavenly Tyrant by Zidane Zhao, the sequel to the Iron Widow first book. This book was amazing, and it took me about 2 weeks to read, which is more than it usually takes for me to read. I absolutely adored this book as well. Last honorable mention is Providence by Max Berry. I really liked this sci-fi. It's about a group of people that go onto a ship for long periods of time in space and fight a war against aliens. And it just needs a little bit more to get it over the edge of amazing, but I absolutely adored it. But the absolute best book I read this year was Jewel Box by E. Lily Yu, which I have listed. It is the first book I read this year. And I wouldn't say nothing has topped this, but this one I keep coming back to. It's a short story anthology collection by E. Lily Yu, and it has one of my favorite short stories ever. And each and every single short story here has almost made me cry. And I absolutely adored this book. I highly recommend to read this short story collection. I love short story collections so much. I will be talking about this one in a short story anthology review video. That's going to be in the future. But yeah, this has been the best book I've read in the year so far. Next question is, what is the best sequel that you've read in this year? And honorable mentions, I have to say Dark by Angie Sage. This is the 6th book in the Septimus Heap series, which I have been rereading. I read it first in 2012, and I wanted to revisit it, and turns out, hey, I didn't remember a vast majority of this series, so I was rereading it basically for the first time. From book 3 forward, this series has been amazing, and Dark has been the highlight so far, and I'm really excited to read the next book, Fire, which is definitely not a book that I read when I was younger. I think it came out in 2013 or something like that, which is why I never got to it when I was younger. And so that Fire will be the one that I'm excited to read. Dark is a really good culmination of a lot of different things for this series, but it's still not my favorite sequel. Also, honorable mention is The Hork-Bajir Chronicles by K.A. Applegate. This is a prequel, sequel, spin-off series for the Animorphs series, and it covers Aldrea and Dakhami and the beginning of the Hork-Bajir colonization by the Yeerk Empire. And it's so melodramatic and so amazing. It's one of my favorite Animorph books. But definitely my favorite sequel is going to be Sunrise of the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Like I said, like, hello. It's a really great prequel look into the world. And it answers some questions and reveals interesting stuff as well, and is still able to feel fresh and new, despite how we know how the Hunger Games will proceed. It still manages to feel fresh and new and surprise me and surprise the audience as well. It's one of my absolutely favorite books. Best sequel. Next question is new releases TBR, which are new books that have come out that I would like to read. Honorable mention is Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Naylor, which is a book that Jessica's library card has talked about, and that one sounds really cool. Also, honorable mention is Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman, which I remember seeing a list of like cool, interesting horror books, and I had added it there. And then I read Found, an anthology of found footage horror stories. Really cute little horror anthology. Includes a short story by Clay McLeod Chapman, Spew of News. And when I finished that short story, I looked at the authors within and saw what else have they written, and I saw that I had already added Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman, and I was like, I might as well want to read that even more because his short story here is really good, and so that one's been bumped up in my list as well. But the one that I'm really excited to read is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I've heard a lot of things about this book. I don't know what it's about, and I know that I will have to read it for a book club that I'm trying to join sometime later in the year. And so I know that I'm going to get to it eventually because I want to participate in this book club. And so that's pretty exciting for me. Next question is most anticipated releases. So books that haven't come out yet that I'm really excited to see them come out. They're coming out this year. Honorable mentions, we have Letters from an Imaginary Anthropology by Theodora Goss, which is going to be a short story collection of short stories that Goss has written. Comes out on November 11th. And I'm really excited for this one because I know that I've read two of her short stories that will be included in this collection, and I absolutely adored those two short stories. And so I'm really excited to see what else she has collected in this collection. Next honorable mention is Intuition by K.T. Carlisle, which comes out October 31st, Halloween. This story is about a woman who goes to visit her family after a recent death, and a stranger tells her about a premonition that the plane that she's about to go on is about to crash, and so she decides to not get on the plane, and the plane crashes. The woman Sarah goes to find the clairvoyant that saved her life, and together they try to figure out who is trying to kill Sarah. And that sounds really exciting. I follow K.T. Carlisle on Twitter, and also her husband, Anthea Lafucci's We Have Issues podcast is really fun on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description as well. Check them out. But the number one book that I'm super excited for, I've already pre-ordered it, is The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow, which comes out October 28th, which is also my birthday. I've read Alex E. Harrow's, A Thousand Lives of January. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that title. It's right here. The 10,000 Doors of January. I read this, a year or two ago, loved it. But the important part for me is that The Everlasting is an expansion of the short story that was included in the Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy of 2023. Her short story, The Six Deaths of a Saint, is amazing, and The Everlasting is an expansion of that short story. And so I was really excited to get that book, and so I've already pre-ordered it, and I can't wait till it comes out. It's gonna arrive after my birthday, but it's a really cool birthday present to myself, you know? The next question is, what are the biggest disappointments that I've read so far in this year? And for honorable mentions, we have Lesser Known Monsters by Rory Michelson. I pretty much DNF'd it, but I still sort of finished it in a way. I half skimmed it, so I only consumed a quarter of it, and I didn't expect much coming in, and then still was disappointed with it. It just wasn't for me, and I have to accept that. Also, I guess these are dishonorable mentions. Another dishonorable mention is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stevens, which was a book that I got from Book of the Month. It was the second book I got since I started it, because I started it in January, the subscription service. Please sponsor me, Book of the Month. Infinite Fates, second book that I got. I really liked how it started. It was really good, but then the twist ending, I just did not like at all. It didn't really fit with the story, and I was left disappointed by it. Another dishonorable mention is Hella by David Gerard. I think I am underrating this book. It feels like two separate books in one. I've talked about this in my review of it. I still like it. I do like it, but I don't like where it ended up eventually. But where it started was really good. And so I don't want to say this was a bad book. It was just I didn't really like how it ended or what it led to. But it's still a pretty good book. But the number one book that disappointed me this year was The Masquerade by Mike Fu. I think compared to the other books, this one I had higher expectations for. I picked it up on a whim at Barnes& Noble because it sounded interesting. It's about a 30-something gay man from China living in the United States, and he's trying to figure out his life after several career opportunities don't pan out, and he is house sitting for a friend who ends up disappearing. And weird stuff happens. He finds a book that is written by a guy that shares his Chinese name, and the book is really interesting. The writing is really cool, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And when I was reading it at the beginning, and when I read the blurb about it, I thought it was going to be something similar to David Mitchell stories because I love David Mitchell, love his type of writing and his types of stories. And the writing also felt very similar to David Mitchell, and the story felt very similar to David Mitchell, but it didn't go anywhere. And I felt like it was too stuck on trying to be literary fiction and not genre. And I feel like it needed a little bit more genre. And at the end, it just didn't feel like it said anything. But it was really beautiful, and it's just, I wanted more from it, and that's why it's the most disappointing. Because, yeah, Lesser Known Monsters, I did not like. Hella, I didn't like how it got to it. Our Infinite Fate, I didn't like the plot twist. But this one started out so good in concept, in execution, good, but in conclusion, I felt robbed. I needed more genre in this, and it wasn't what I was looking for. So this was the biggest disappointment. So it was still a good book. It was just disappointing. Next question is, what is the biggest surprise book that you read this year? I'm not sure exactly how to interpret this, so I'm interpreting as your expectation for the book and what it ended up being. And so, that's sort of what I did with the biggest disappointment. And for me, honorable mentions, again, Providence by Max Berry. The thing was that it was sandwiched between a handful of books that did not end up pretty well. And before this, I had read several science fiction books that were somewhat similar in content, and I just didn't quite enjoy them as much. But this one, I was starting to get into a sci-fi slump, I would say. And this one took me out of that slump, and so that was a big surprise. I was surprised at how good it was and how different it was compared to other sci-fi stories that I've read. Next honorable mention is The Man Made of Smoke by Alex North. This was the third book of the month that I got. I forget exactly which one it was, but this is a thriller. I am not a thriller kind of reader, and I was really surprised how much I enjoyed it. And I'm kind of like, maybe I should try more thrillers because I've tried a handful maybe in the past, far past, and didn't quite enjoy them. But this one I really liked, and then right after I read another thriller, and so I feel like, you know what? Yeah, let me try more thrillers. And so this was a good surprise as well. But number one, the biggest surprise this year was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. So I bought this book after I had pre-ordered Sunrise, and after Sunrise arrived, I read it, and then I read this one because I wanted to have a little bit more context. I wanted to read the entire catalog. I am rereading Hunger Games at some point pretty soon, like I ordered the first book. But I remember when this book came out, the buzz around it was lacking. Like, people were talking about it and they were like, hey, this book it's kind of mid. And I heard a lot of things about this book that I didn't quite enjoy, and so I put off reading it. I was like, I don't really care about it. I didn't watch the movie. And Sunrise came out, and I was like, you know what? Let me just try it. And then I read it, and it was so good. I was so surprised of how much I enjoyed it. And the fun part is that, we know that it's Coriolanus Snow, And Suzanne Collins does a really good job of making us interested in Snow without making us like him. And I think that's a really tricky thing to do. And I think she accomplished that very, very well with this, especially because she uses his relationships with Sejanus Plinth, Tigress, and above all, Lucy Gray to make us interested in what he's doing, but still not like him. And so I was really, really surprised with how much I enjoyed this book. And so that's why it's like my number one biggest surprise in this book in this year. The next question is favorite new author. And I'm sort of taking this as sort of the first time you've read this author and not like a new publishing author. And so for me, these authors are the first time I've read these books and I really enjoyed them. First honorable mention, we have Robert Jackson Bennett, who wrote The Tainted Cup, which I read this past month. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I have already the next book I'm reading is the sequel to this book, and so I'm really excited for that. And I really liked his writing here, and I heard that the next book is better than this one, and so I'm really excited for that. Next honorable mention is Keith Rosen, who wrote Fever House. I was really surprised with his writing style. I really liked his horror writing style here, and I had not read anything from him before, and I really do want to read the sequel to this book. And I was really happy with how he wrote horror here, which sometimes when I read horror stories, the writing has to be in a certain way to really grab your attention. And so Keith Rosen really did that. And so I really applaud him for what he did here. Last honorable mention is Ava Reed, who wrote Lady Macbeth. I did not know what to expect from Ava Reed. And when I looked at the reviews for this book and when I started talking about this book, people said that they were slightly disappointed with it. But I really enjoyed this retelling of Macbeth. And so I want to read more of her stuff because the way that she wrote in this fantasy story was really, really compelling. And so I'm keeping track of more of Ava Reed. Number one favorite new author this year is Caitlin Starling, who wrote The Starving Saints. This book I saw and I pre-ordered because it looked amazing and it sounded amazing. And I did not understand 25% of it, but I knew that it was going to be horrifying, dreamlike, beautiful. And so I knew that I wanted to read this one, and I've been wanting to read a handful of Starling's books before, like Luminous Dead. I've had on my TBR for like a few years, and so this one jumpstarts my like, hey, I need to read all of Caitlin Starling because this was amazing, and I will be rereading this sometime in the future because I need to understand it better. But it was so good. I loved her writing style here, and I'm really excited for the other books that she's written. Next question is your favorite new character so far this year. And so I'm interpreting this as sort of first time you've encountered this character, if it's like in a series. And so honorable mention, we have Aldrea, who I first encountered in The Prophecy, which is book 34 of the Animorphs. I listened to this audiobook earlier this year, and then encountered her again when I listened to the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, which is when she became cemented as my favorite new character. And so I really loved her in those two books. Next honorable mention is Holly Sykes from The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. Holly is, we cover her entire life story in this book while being in different points of view. And that's really fun to see different perspectives of Holly. We go from when she's like 13, 14 to when she's like 80 years old, and really fun the exploration of her life alongside this war between psychics. This book is crazy. Last honorable mention, I'm going to lump two characters in one. It's going to be Ampert and Maisley from Sunrise on the Reaping. Ampert being the son of BT and Maisley being one of the three other tributes for District 12. I still like, the other, Wyatt and Luella / Lulu, is still cool, amazing, I love them. But Maisley really stands out, specifically because she lasts longer. And Ampert as well is so adorable, so cute, love him to death. Both characters amazing. But number one for me, my favorite character is Gilly from Providence, Max Berry. This book has been nominated and 3 times by now, I think. It's finally gotten a win here. And Gilly is one of 4 people in this book who have been trapped in this, quote unquote, trapped in this ship. And like, it's not like they're trapped, but it's in space and they're off to fight a war, and they can't get home until they finish fighting the war. Gilly is very, very intelligent, very smart, and not really good with people, but he's very good with solving riddles and solving puzzles. And so he starts figuring out like some of the lies that is occurring in this ship. And so he's really cool here. And honestly, what I needed more from this book is for Gilly to kiss another guy. I need him to be gay. And that would have pushed this book over the edge. But Gilly is such I relate to Gilly so well, and I really loved seeing him. I really loved seeing him struggle and also solve problems and get himself out of situations. When he starts communicating with the aliens and he figures out the physiology, the biology, how the aliens work and stuff like that, so cool. I loved Gilly so much in this book. It also helps that I didn't like any of the other characters, in that they were written really well. I did not like them personally. I loved how they were written. Did not like how they are personally. Gilly, really good writing, and I like him personally. The next question is books that made you cry. And so for me, I'm not a particularly emotional reader. Like, it takes a lot for me to cry at something. I don't. Last time I cried for a book was Where the Red Fern Grows, and that was when I was in elementary school, I have to say. And I'm not trying to brag. Like, I'm still emotional, but it takes a lot for me to cry about something. I would like to cry about some books. Some books did get me close. So honorable mention is The Hork-Bajir Chronicles by K.A. Applegate. The absolute tragedy that befalls Aldrea when her family is killed by the Yerks, and the emotional distress she's in. And shout out to Daniel, who makes the Audiomorphs podcast. His performance of Aldrea is absolutely gut-wrenching, and that just made me really emotional. Let's not say made me cry, but made me emotional is the best way to put it, I guess, here. And the next honorable mention is the Star Wars Dark Disciple by Christie Golden, which is a story of Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress as they team up together to try to kill Count Dooku. And it turns a action adventure type story from Star Wars into a action romance, and then a romance tragedy. And the romance between Asajj and Quinlan is really, really compelling and really sad and tragic. And I honestly don't like what happened in the end, but it fits with the story, and I'm fine with that. I thought, spoilers, I thought both of them were going to die, but just Asajj dies, and I feel like that's not that good. But it still fits, and it still made me emotional how their romance played out and the tragedy within it. And so this one's a really good emotional story. Last honorable mention is Jewel Box by Leila E. Yu. Short story anthologies, collections are easier to get me to feel emotion because it's a lot of emotion packed into a small space. And so Leila Yu did that very well in some of these stories. But number one book that made me emotional, that actually did almost very, very, very close make me cry, is The Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy of 2015, edited by Joe Hill, series edited by John Joseph Adams. I have an anthology review for this book, so go check that out. Some of these stories here, the way they end, the way they start, the way they progress, just made me so emotional. I remember reading one of these stories, getting to the end of it, turning the page, seeing that there's no more of it, and choking up at work as I was reading this. I was like, oh my God, that was so good. And so short story anthologies tend to make me very, very emotional. And this one was the one that really hit hard for me this year. So number one for that. Next question is a book that made you happy this year. And so also, in the same vein of like, which books made me really emotional in a really positive way. And I think the books that I chose are interesting. So let me explain, okay? First honorable mention is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. The thing is, I really, really enjoy Macbeth itself by Shakespeare. It's one of my favorite Shakespeare stories. And this retelling was really, really good. And so it made me really happy despite the content within it. You know what I mean? Like, I just was really pleased with how this story panned out and how it was written and how it was presented and stuff like that. And so that is what made me happy. Also, I really like the pink edges here. That is what made me happy, not the content itself, because the content's a little disturbing. But I love Macbeth, and so having this retelling the way that it is, I really enjoyed. Next honorable mention is Heavenly Tyrant by Ziran Zhao. Listen. Iron Widow was really fun. This one was really fun as well. I really enjoyed the expression of frustration and anger that Wu Zetian has here for her situation, for the injustices that happen, and I really do enjoy when the revolution pans out and all the really, really bad people are executed, and that scene is written to be a little disturbing, and it is. It is a little disturbing, it's a little frightening. She's written to be a little frightening. It's written to be like, hey, yeah, this is good, but also like, not that much. But it was really fun. I really enjoyed reading this, and so that is why this book made me happy. But number one book that made me really, really happy is The Clone Army Attacketh by Ian Dosher, which is a adaptation of Attack of the Clones, the movie, into a Shakespearean format. And I love, that's my favorite Star Wars movie, Attack of the Clones. And the way that it's written here is so fun. It's so fun, and it has a lot of, it does a lot of really interesting writing techniques, and he talks about it too. It's a mix of theater kid energy and nerd energy, which I absolutely just enjoy. I read it in one sitting. It's really short, and I just absolutely adored how this book was written, and so that made me really, really happy. When I found it, immediately bought it, because like, hell yeah, and loved it. The next question is the most beautiful book that you've read this year. And I'm choosing to interpret this question two-prong, in that it has a really beautiful cover and the story or the content is beautiful, which can also have different varying ideas as to what that means. And so I have some options here. Honorable mention, Masquerade by Mike Fu. I think this cover is compelling and beautiful and so simple too. The prose is also really amazing. Like when the main character finds and reads the book that he found that is written by a man with the same Chinese name as him, it's set in Shanghai during 1920s, 1930s party, and that sections are just beautiful written, beautiful descriptions. I absolutely adored that. Honorable mention, Heavenly Tyrant, again, by Ziran Zhao. I mean, look at that cover. Beautiful. And then the string goes all the way to King Zhang. Like, so powerful, so beautiful, compared to Iron Widow, which also really beautiful cover there as well. But Wu Zetian here looks beautiful, and I absolutely adore her here. Honorable mention, Burial Bones in the Midnight Soil. I just finished this book a few days ago by V.A. Schwab, and I think this cover is so compelling. It's another book of the month, and I think this cover is so compelling and beautiful. The writing as well is really beautiful, especially in the beginning when it's covering Maria's lifetime in Spain. That part's really beautiful. Last honorable mention, again, is The Starving Saints. Like I said, this cover, like, I don't believe in not judging a book by its cover. Like, the cover of a book is really important to its appeal, but I think there is nuance in that as well, in terms of, hey, maybe you should take the cover and the contents inside, the blurb or whatever, to judge if you want to read a book or not. But like, if a cover is beautiful, I'm gonna look at it and I'm gonna pick it up and see what the fuck it's about. And this one is one of those, like, oh my god, look, the bees, the hands in the face, like, oh Jesus Christ, that is beautiful. And the writing as well, dreamlike, beautiful. It's tinged with honey. It's so good. But number one most beautiful book I read this year has to be 6 Days in Bombay by Alka Joshi. This one is also from Book of the Month, and I think the cover is simple, it's interesting. It's pulling from trends from publishing before, and it's pretty simple and understated, but the writing inside is some of the most beautiful I've ever read. The prose, the descriptions are so good, and I just absolutely adored how this book was written, and I think both a combination of the cover and what's inside is beautiful. And so this book I will always remember as to how it's written and the beauty inside. Absolutely adore it. So this one's my number one most beautiful book I read this year. Last question is still to come. So these are books that I have on my TBR that I want to read within the year. And so for me, this is less of a hard like promise because I get my books sort of randomly in terms of I have a long TBR that I just add onto it on Goodreads. If you check out my Goodreads, I'll put the link in the description. And so I just sort of like quasi randomly choose whichever books I get there. Like there are some that I'm like, oh, I really want to read this one, and then like some I'm like, oh, I have this one on my TBR. Mostly I look at what's on thrift books and see which ones are on sale and stuff like that. Also, whatever happens to come my way through birthdays or Christmas, because my parents always ask me, hey, what do you want for your birthday or Christmas? And I'd say, I have a list of books here. And they choose randomly within that too. I think they look at which ones on Amazon have like lowest price and they give it to me, and I'm like, awesome, that's great, that's beautiful, that's exactly what I want. You know, these are books. So these books, I don't have a hard promise that I will read at the end by the end of the year, but these have been at the top of my radar for some time, and I really want to get my hands on them. So honorable mention, we have A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. I have heard about this book a handful of times, and then it has cropped up again like 2 or 3 times in different booktubers that I've watched. So I'm like, hey, I've heard a lot about this, might as well. I added this book on my TBR like in college. I remember that. Next honorable mention, A Master of Gin by P. Jelly Clark. I read 2 of their short stories in the 2019 Best American Science Fiction and 2022. I read 2 of their short stories are featured in these anthologies, and I absolutely adored. I think I liked the 2022 short story more than 2019 short story, but I know about P. Jelly Clark, and I heard that Master of Gin is really good as well. So I'm also gearing to get that book. Honorable mention: All Systems Read by Martha Wells, obviously because the show is coming out on Apple TV. My boyfriend has Apple TV, so I'm like, if I want to watch it, I gotta read the books. And I saw that they have combined because they're novellas, right? Like each individual entry is like a novella about like 100 pages. They've combined the novellas into like 3 books, so it's like a thicker thing. So it's like 3 novellas in one book. I want to read that. That feels a lot more accessible than trying to get my hands on like 7 different novellas. And so that's on my top of the list. Our Wives Under the Skin by Julia Armfield, another honorable mention. This one I found in a list, have had in the list of like horror queer stories that are queer and horrifying, and I'm really excited for that as well. And the cover is also so compelling, so beautiful. Last honorable mention, The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez is more of a hard promise to finish in the year because, like The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, I know that the book club that I want to get into is going to read The Spear Cuts Through Water. So when that comes around, I will be getting that book and reading it because I don't know what it's about. It looks so confusing, but the cover also amazing. I've been wanting to read this book since I first heard it. I think it came out 2 years ago, and I added my TBR from that moment, and I still have it in my TBR. So yeah, I'm definitely wanting to read that pretty soon. Number 1 book that I really, really want to read, that if I see it on sale, I'll get it because I want to save money, obviously. But I've been gearing to get this book for a long time, and it's only recently that I'm like increasing my want for it, and it's going to be Babel by R.F. Kuang. It was in my radar for like some time before, as well as the Poppy War, but Poppy War is more of a series, so I'll take my time with that one. But Babel is a standalone. R.F. Kuang's other book, Calabasas, also came out recently, and there's been some buzz about that too. Babel I've had in my radar, like I said, for some time, and it looked interesting, but I didn't want to like fully read it until after I read the Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy of 2023, which is edited by R.F. Kuang. And I think it's really interesting because this is one of the best, absolute the best short story anthologies I've ever read. And I think, hey, RF Kwong, you have really, really, really good taste. I'll read your book. And I have heard a lot of good things, obviously, of Babel. And so I'm excited to read Babel because of this short. I haven't read anything by R.F. Kuang, and I think it'd be really cool that Babel would be the first book that I read from R.F. Kuang. And so that one, if I don't see it on sale, if I get the money for it, I'm gonna snatch it up because it sounds so good. And R.F. Kuang really, really won me over with this anthology, and so I need to get that in my hands. Anyway, yes. So according to my book reads, I have read 46 books so far in this year. And I don't think I'm going to break my record of books read total in the year because last year I read 86 books in total, but that is ballooned, is that the term? Filled in a lot by all of the Animorphs books that I listened audiobook with. And so that was like 30 odd books on top of that. So that's why it's a lot. But I'm already at 40 odd this year, and I'm really excited for what the next few months are going to come to for me in terms of reading. I have my June 2025 review monthly reading recap coming out pretty soon. I've read a lot of books this month, and they've been really good. I've mentioned some of them here. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you have read and what your favorite books are, most favorite authors, favorite characters, most disappointing, most surprising. What are the other questions that they asked me? Most beautiful books that you read this year. Let me know all about that. Let me know if you've read any of these books as well, especially the ones that have been published like years ago. Thank you again so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends. Please let me know what you think about this channel, what you think about this video. Thank you once again. Don't forget to be passionate, and I'll see you later.